Regardless of where you were born in the world, you were born and came into this world whole, complete, beautiful, happy, you loved yourself. And then as you grew up and you tried to fit in and you tried to survive whatever it was that you were needing to survive in your community or your household, to get the love, to get the attention, to get the support that you needed, you started to change. You started to believe that you needed to change something about yourself in order to be liked or accepted. Now, when you start to feel like there's something wrong with you, and do any of you that are watching right now feel like you kind of know when that happened? Like there's a story that you can remember where somebody said something or did something and you're like, my tough skin jeans and the t-shirt I wear, there's something wrong with this because the kids that I want to be friends with don't like this. Or a coach said, you run funny, and you started to feel like there's something wrong with you. If you know the moment that you started to think, wow, I got to change myself to fit in. I can't be gay. I can't have kinky hair. I don't like the color of my skin because I feel like there's something wrong with me. Society gave you that message. Your parents did. Maybe a bully said something to you. I see somebody writing the way that I walk. I see somebody talking about the texture of their hair. I see somebody saying, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Well, let me tell you something, everybody. I never fit in with any particular groups of friends. Let me tell you something. Every one of you is now going, I remember that feeling because I was the only immigrant in my class. I was the only Muslim in my class. I didn't look like the other people. I didn't feel like the other people. My father was so critical, right? When you start to get this message from society or other people or just this perception that you have that something's wrong with you, this is where your obsession with changing yourself to fit in begins. This is where your obsession with people pleasing, this is where this sense that you don't belong anywhere that you go began, and it can become a habit. And so we're going to unpack this because what I want you to understand is that you literally came into this world perfect, whole, and complete. You are wired to love yourself. You're wired for love. That's why you miss it. You're wired for self-acceptance. And the world taught you that there's something about you that needs to be changed in order to be liked or loved. And it's simply not true. When you can come back home to yourself and you can accept and love yourself first, exactly where you are, exactly where you're not, then you'll know the secret to going out in the world and not feeling like you never really belong anywhere, or you constantly need to tweak yourself or how you show up in order to be accepted by people. When you accept yourself as you are, when you love yourself as you are, other people liking or loving you is just a bonus, but it doesn't change how you feel about yourself. And that's what we're talking about in chapter 4 of the High Five Habit. This feeling that you feel, everybody, that there's something wrong with you, it's a very normal thing. It happens in child development. Psychologists call this moment where you suddenly go from feeling connected to yourself and perhaps to people in your family or to friends, to feeling outside of your family or feeling like you're not part of something. That they call this a break in belonging. You start to feel like you don't belong in your family or your church or your friend group or your neighborhood or even the world at large. And that feeling then creates this second break, and it's the break in feeling connected to yourself, who you really are. You know, and this break in belonging, everyone, it's normal. It happens to all of us, and it can happen a million different ways. You know, maybe you grew up and you had to move a lot, and so you were constantly changing schools, and so you always felt like an outsider looking in because every school year you needed to make new friends. Maybe you were attacked or unsafe as a child. Maybe you got called stupid, or you had a critical parent because you were dyslexic. Maybe you were put in special classes, or you were the only kid who was transgender or Muslim or a refugee or black in your entire class. And so you didn't look around and see anybody that looked like you. And that made you feel like something was up. Maybe you got teased for how you looked or spoke or acted. Or you felt uncomfortable getting undressed in gym class because your mom was constantly on you about your weight. And so that made you feel like, God, there's something wrong with me. I can't just love myself as I am. When your home life or your friends at school or the world itself makes you feel like you're not okay, or you're unsafe or unworthy of love, as a kid, we believe it. And it happens to all of us. No one, not you, not me, no one gets to being an adult without experiencing this kind of break in belonging and this kind of trauma. And it could have been really serious things that you survived. Maybe your dad walked out on the family, or your mom had severe depression, or your brother died by suicide. Maybe you lived growing up with the constant worry about where your next meal was coming from, or you experienced racism and bias every single day in your neighborhood, or maybe your family rejected you because you did have the courage to be who you are. You did have the courage to say that you are a gay person, or you had a parent who struggled with addiction or was constantly shaming you with the silent treatment. You know, these experiences impacted you. You absorbed them as a child in your mind, body, and spirit. It's not like you could leave, right? I mean, when you're a kid, our only choice is to survive the situation that we're in. And this is especially hard on an emotional level, this sort of break in belonging. You know, I see some people saying, I didn't fully start to understand myself until my 50s. I really believe that. Me too. Like, it took me a long time, and it's my hope that in putting the high five habit out and doing the work to help you learn how to take control of your thoughts and your actions so that you can create the life that you want, that part of what happens is that you come back into accepting, loving, and knowing yourself. It's the ultimate secret weapon, everyone. So when something happens to you as a kid, you don't have the life experience or the support system to process what's happening. So you absorb it in your nervous system and coping patterns and thoughts. You know, as I said, your only option when you're a kid is to just survive it. And you know, what's interesting, and I think this is a fundamental flaw in human wiring, there's so much amazing intelligence in the way that you and I are designed, all human beings. If you think about all of the sophisticated wiring in your brain, in your body, your nervous system, your digestive system, your heartbeat, how your body's constantly learning and creating new cells, like, it's freaking mind-blowingly cool. But one thing that's really screwed up about all of us, and I think it's a flaw in human design, is that when something happens to you or to me as a child, we don't have the life experience or the default thinking patterns in our brain to go, wait a minute, this is really f***ed up. We don't have the ability to be objective and go, these adults need to be arrested because this is not okay. We don't have the support system or the life experience to go, wow, if this kid is hurting me, I'm sure somebody's hurting this kid at their house. What happens is that when something bad or scary or stressful happens to you as a kid, do you know what we all do? We point it right back at ourselves. We literally say to ourselves, something must be wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me. If my parents treat me like this, something must be wrong with me. If these kids don't include me, something must be wrong with me. We turn it back on ourselves because we don't know any better. We're just kids, and that's when it happens. You start to get this default kind of filter about your whole life where you look at the world and you have this default opinion that something's wrong with you. And it's just simply not true, okay? And I'm going to teach you that you can change that. You can change that. You can live your life without ever thinking something's wrong with me. Are there things that you need to change? Of course. There's always going to be things that you need to change because you're always going to be changing and life's always going to be changing around you. But those are opportunities. It doesn't mean that there's something fundamentally flawed about you. You might have some thinking patterns that are broken based on where you are right now. You might have some habits that don't work for you anymore. That doesn't mean something's wrong. It means there's something you need to change. That's it. That's it. So, you know, I did the same thing. When I was 9 years old, I was molested by an older kid. And what was my immediate reaction and processing? That I had done something wrong. Of course I hadn't done something wrong, but that's just how the kid brain works. Something's wrong with me. And, you know, it's what our son did when he was bullied at a summer camp that we sent him to. What he did is he hid his pain, and then he blamed himself for being the one that this bully picked on in the cabin. And, you know, I, of course, blame myself for not picking up on the clues sooner and ripping our son right out of that freaking camp. I'm sure that's what you did too with the experiences you survived. You made the things that were done to you or the situations that you survived as a child mean that something's wrong with you, that you're damaged or that you're not lovable or you're unworthy or you're not good enough. That is up, and we all do it. The truth is, you were just a kid doing the best that you could. And what's awesome about seeing your past experiences this way is that when you realize we all have this flaw in terms of the way that the brain processes trauma and stress and scary situations and abuse and violence and all the things that you can experience as a kid, is that when you understand that this is what happened, you can change this default in terms of your opinion about yourself. Because when you think there's something wrong with you, of course you're going to be a people pleaser. Of course you're going to have imposter syndrome. Of course you're going to have anxiety. Of course you're going to feel on edge. Because your default opinion is there's something that's not okay with you. And that's not true. There are opportunities for you to heal. There are opportunities for you to upgrade your habits. There are opportunities for you to think differently. There are opportunities for you to heal your nervous system, all of which we talk about in the High Five Habit book, using science and simple things that you can do.